Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'm going to review the film The Running Man. I feel like maybe I was in the minority on this one, but I was really excited for this movie. I feel like that shouldn't be the case because director Edgar Wright has made so many well-acclaimed movies that both critics and audiences like. Baby Driver in particular is one of my favorite movies ever, I think. And he's made a ton of others that people really enjoy, like Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Hot Fuzz, a few others that people really liked. But overall, I mean, he's a really good filmmaker. And the lead star, Glenn Powell, seems to be one of the fastest growing actors today. So I thought this movie kind of had a lot of potential going for it. And the movie itself is a remake of an Arnold Schwarzenegger film from several decades ago. And that movie is based on a Stephen King book. Supposedly, the new Running Man film takes heavier inspiration from the book and is more accurate to it. Actually, funny enough, the book was written a long time ago, and it takes place actually in 2025, and now we're getting a new movie in 2025, so that's pretty ironic. Very cool about that, though. I think that's a nice little detail, and it kind of just also goes to show, like, I guess how much the ideas have held up in the book today, like how I actually think if you watch the movie, a lot of the ideas in the movie feel like almost scary relevant right now. Um, you know, which is crazy for a book that was written so long ago to actually have these ideas that still feel very very relevant today. I think that's very cool. So that was neat, and I thought the trailers for this movie looked really fun. I was already pretty excited to watch it, and then about a month ago, I went to this panel for the movie at New York Comic Con, which showed a few clips, and I thought it looked great from that. I actually got really excited. So from there, my excitement kind of went from good and genuinely interested to just extremely hyped. Like, I wanted to see this movie opening weekend. I was very excited to see it. And then reviews came out, which were fine. They were decent. Right now, I think it's in like the 60s on Rotten Tomatoes, which means that around 6 out of 10 critics liked it. And that's not great. That means 4 out of 10 didn't like it. And you don't know how much the 6 out of 10 liked it. I mean, maybe everyone who did like it is just kind of like, it was fine, it was decent. So that did kind of make me lower my expectations a little bit. Not to say that the reviews were bad or swayed me from seeing the film, but, seeing it be a lot more mixed than I thought it would be was a little concerning and did make me lower my hype a little bit. Anywho, I still want to say that I did enjoy the movie. I think it's a good movie. Honestly, for the first hour and a half or so, I was really into it. I actually was kind of loving it and was just confused about why the reviews weren't better. Like, why weren't the reviews in the 80s or 90s even? But I'll say this, Glenn Powell gives a great performance here. We haven't really seen him play this type of character before, where he's very angry and has this passionate rage. Usually we're used to seeing the more fun Glenn Powell, kind of as a nice guy, or someone who's a bit cocky, like in Top Gun Maverick. But that rage isn't something I've seen from him before, and it's something I actually really enjoyed watching. He finds this great balance of being likable, but also intimidating, and there's a fire in him that you can see, and that's how the character's supposed to be, and I think he captured that very well. Like, I would like to see him do more roles like this, where you can really... I even think he could be a great villain in a movie someday if he wanted to. I mean, you can really feel that rage boiling inside him. And you can just feel that he's on the verge of snapping constantly at people, and that was great. I think he did an excellent job in the role. He was actually pretty perfect for this role, if you ask me. And the supporting cast here is solid. The movie has a few actors like Josh Brolin, Coleman Domingo, Lee Pace, Amelia Jones, and Michael Cera, who I really enjoy watching all the time. They're all good here. Especially, I want to say, Josh Brolin. I mean, there's a few scenes where he's just, like, on a computer screen, and that's whatever. But, like, I just love Josh Brolin's energy. There's a few scenes here where he kills it and makes you really feel it. And, yeah, I thought that was really great. But, yeah, I thought the supporting cast added some levity, some good energy into the mix. And I think the setup for the characters and the story as a whole are well done. You feel for Ben Richards as a character, and you want to see him succeed. You understand the stakes of this world and why things are the way they are. And then there's these grounded, emotional moments, too, where it's really just about a guy risking his life to save his family. And so you understand, the big stakes, the small stakes, everything just kind of works, and you feel it. You're ready for this journey. You're like, I really want to see this guy succeed. And it was all a great setup. One thing I have seen a lot of people criticize this movie for is being Edgar Wright's least Edgar Wright movie. And what that means is that he has a very distinct style in a lot of his films. And if you've watched an Edgar Wright movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, they all feel exactly like an Edgar Wright movie would. And, and this movie, it's not totally present there. Like, you get little snippets of it, but it's not nearly as noticeable in The Running Man as it would be in something like Baby Driver or Hot Fuzz. And personally, I didn't really mind that. Sometimes a filmmaker just wants to tell a good story and focus on that, and less on their stylistic tendencies. And I think that's just the case here. I mean, this is Edgar Wright making a Stephen King movie, and I think it would be nice to have a lot of style in the movie, absolutely. But I thought everything was well made about it, so I wasn't like sitting in the theater thinking, why doesn't this movie do something crazier stylistically? Because look, I love Edgar Wright's style, but I'm just saying, like, I think sometimes too much style in the wrong kind of movie just doesn't really work. Like, normally Edgar Wright's movies, I would say, are a lot lighter. They're usually a lot funnier, more silly. And maybe the only exception to that would be something like Last Night in Soho, which is his other most recent film that was kind of more of like a thriller or a little more of a step into horror. He still had his style in that more than I would say The Running Man does. Maybe it's just because The Running Man is like a very expensive Hollywood movie and they just didn't want to make it too crazy for people. Maybe that's part of it, but if you ask me, this doesn't feel like a case of a director being washed down by the studio or anything. Like, it doesn't feel like he was making a movie less stylish against his will. It just feels like, to me, it felt like Edgar Wright was just taking a step back and like really just trying to focus on the action and making sure that the story is solid and not being too crazy with the style. That's how I took it. So that's all I'll kind of say on that. But again, I don't feel like Edgar Wright's presence isn't felt at all. You see some of it in the editing, you get some of it in the action, some of it's there in the music. It's just not as much as maybe you would expect or you're used to. But yeah, I thought the movie was overall very well made. The action is very intense and had me on the edge of my seat constantly. I think Edgar Wright brings this electric energy to the film where you can really feel the hype around this show that they're on. Like, you can feel the excitement and sort of the, you could tell why everyone's so into it. And I was invested to see what would happen to these people. There are a couple of standout sequences for the action. One is in this hotel where Ben Richards has to hide from some men in a towel. That was very, very good. And there's another scene in this guy's house involving a Nerf gun that was also very cool and very inventive, and I thought that was very fun as well. And that was all in the first 2/3 of the movie or so. I thought all of that was great. Once you got past a certain point in the movie, though, I think it fell off considerably. And not even just that it fell off, but it overstayed its welcome, which to me is one of the worst things a movie can do. Because if you have a really good groove and you're interested to see what will happen, but then you don't know how to stick the landing, then it begins to feel less like enjoyment and more like a chore to sit through. And there are some very sloppy decisions made in the last section of the movie, things that didn't really make sense, choices that felt very bizarre or just thrown in there for the sake of it, and reveals that weren't explained much or explored or even hinted at for that matter. They just kind of just throw them at you, and I didn't really feel like they were earned. It also just kind of felt like the movie kept ending but had more to go. Like, so you just never really felt like the movie found an ending. I don't know. It felt like the writing and direction were so solid for a lot of the movie. And then I'm not really sure what happened. I don't know if they just reshot the last third or re-edited it, but it really didn't feel like the same movie I was watching, and it kind of ended on a bad note. And I know the book, like, I haven't read the book, but I know what the book's ending is now, and I've seen, like, how, it's a little different from what this movie does, and I can see, like, why maybe they changed some things. I don't know. I don't know if it was the change from the book that made it this way, or if they just didn't adapt certain things from the book that were better there. I'm not really sure. Maybe the ending's bad in the book, too. I don't know. To me, I think if I were Edgar Wright, I would have really just adjusted that last third to be a lot, a lot snappier, just more simple, a bit less convoluted. I don't know, just the last third of this movie wasn't really working for me, and I think is the main thing holding me back from honestly wanting to rewatch it, because I would totally rewatch this movie in a heartbeat if it wasn't for that last third just really making the movie feel a lot longer than it is and just making it drag longer than it should have. But I would say I enjoyed the first two-thirds so much that even the lackluster finale didn't ruin the rest of the movie for me. But it is unfortunate because I think had it stuck the landing better, people would be responding a lot better to the film and praising it more. I think the movie would have much better reviews because of that. And I think it's unfortunate because the movie was really strong up to that point, in my opinion. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but, I think it was very solid. And I don't know, I still enjoyed the movie. I would still recommend seeing it. Maybe don't rush out and see it unless you're a big Edgar Wright fan or love Glenn Powell. If you're not really that into either of them, this is probably more of a matinee watch, or you could wait until it's out on streaming. But I still had fun with the movie, and I'm glad I saw it. As I said, Glenn Powell is just killing it in this movie. Edgar Wright, I think he does a very good job with the energy of it. And I don't know. It's a movie that I have problems with, but I did still enjoy it. So I'm going to rate The Running Man a B. And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.